everybody, I'm going to go a slightly different route than my previous presenters, and I'm going to talk a little bit about voluntary conservation and climate solutions. And I think everything that the previous presenters talked about would kind of dovetail with what I'd like to present today. This is the first time I've ever presented this work to anybody outside of NRCS, and I feel really humbled to be able to join you all today, and also to follow in Carlos Suarez's footsteps and Jeremy's. What I spend a lot of my time doing is just a lot of work with numbers, and the questions that come up are, NRCS puts a lot of conservation on the ground with yours, mine, and all of our collective tax dollars, and that delivers conservation on the ground, but that also delivers climate solutions. How can we as a community capitalize on the climate solutions that we are delivering that may not get the recognition that we deserve? So I've put sharp pencil to paper for many years to do these calculations, and I'm going to share them with you today. So this is a presentation of teamwork. It's not just Adam Chambers. This is Carlos and his team, my management team, and all the way up through USDA has supported this over the years through multiple different administrations, and it's just been a really fun ride for me. So here we go. Here are the numbers. I'll share them with you. So California Working Lands, and CDFA, what a partner. We've got a great partner in California Department of Food and Ag and the California Air Resources Board. So I want to also say that they are just in this together with us. We got working lands that can deliver voluntary, real, quantifiable atmospheric benefits, climate solutions, right? And I want to emphasize the voluntary piece first. We'll go into the quantification in a minute. We know farm and ranch, this is a little cartoon. There are a bunch of emissions. There's carbon coming in, carbon going out. We know there's nitrogen coming into the system, nitrogen going out of the system, water coming into the system, water going out of the system. And we know it's a very dynamic system. That's all I wanted to convey with my slide here. There's a lot of fluxes, and we try to take a look at those fluxes and do the calculations associated with those fluxes. Working lands, agricultural conservation practices, that's what NRCS does. I don't need to tell you all about this. We know we can tap into the atmospheric reservoir of carbon dioxide, and we can pull that into healthy working lands, and we can work with across the whole agricultural sector, food, fiber production. You guys in California, I hear you loud and clear. You look at this and you're like, oh, there's another corn, soybean person. So these are all California pictures. Your cover crops out there. I've got the left with the gentleman with the hat on there. Those are cover crops that are waist high for him. So, I guess I spend some time in California. I respect all that you all do out there, with your production systems, with your climate solutions, with compost and all these other practices. And we're here to really help you. And Carlos and his team are the ones that deliver these practices onto the ground. I'm just the wonky nerd who does a lot of calculations on them. So, and speaking about wonky nerds, I'm not going to take you through this slide, but we kind of look at all these different pools of carbon. We look at nitrogen, we look at statistics and how all of this stuff squares up. And we do that at the national level. So in the National Greenhouse Gas Inventory, you can see there's a line. I think everybody, can you see my cursor there? There's California soil carbon stocks and croplands and grasslands and rice methane and we've got this all squared up, and we submit this to the United Nations every April 15th, and we do it in 2 years in arrears. So there's no test in the end, but this year we'll be submitting the 2019 inventory, which is just something for us all to know, that we keep track of all these carbon fluxes as a country. In California, you all have some really smart folks who keep track of this data at the state level as well, and it supports some of your state programs. I'm a carbon accountant. I just love carbon accounting. So this is from your working lands reports on, you know, grasslands and croplands. I don't want to take you through any of this stuff. It's in the afternoon. I want you all to just enjoy the ride and sit back and see these slides. So I won't take you through all the numbers. What I want to kind of bring you to, though, is the important stuff of today, which is, we know, okay, livestock manure management has an emissions profile, and livestock enteric fermentation has an emissions profile, and crop growing and harvesting has an emissions profile, and soil carbon sequestration also has an emissions profile. So you can see here, we're below, you know, we're in the negative here. We can remember that moving carbon out of the atmosphere. And this is with the grasslands piece. We've also got a croplands carbon stocks here piece. And that's really what I'm honed in on today is this green dotted line down here. We don't have a whole bunch of historic data, but what I've done is I've worked with our data internally to NRCS, and I'm going to show you a little bit about that. So we've got a bunch of conservation practices that we work with producers on. Some of these are implemented in pretty high levels in California. Others don't meet the California context or are not appropriate for the California context. So, but they're broken into buckets, and I've got them kind of in these building blocks, if you might. And there's a soil health building block. We've got a grazing and pasture management building block, which has our practices. And some folks look at these and say, well, some of them are maybe a little bit, you know, expiring. Well, they're still getting implemented in the ground. So we have some time lag in our financial versus implementation phase. And we've got all these different buckets. And this is how I do the carbon accounting for our agency. And then what we can do is we can put it all in a fancy little matrix like that. This is nothing other than the previous slide. And that demonstrates our data points, and our data points over time, 2005 to 2010, 15, show how much carbon or nitrous oxide emission reductions we're having from all the NRCS practices. So how much climate benefit is NRCS providing through what we call direct benefits, ancillary benefits, and co-benefits. And then we know, we heard references to the NRI points and things like that. We know there's another line up here, which is the survey of the whole state and what is going on at the state level. NRCS never really reaches the full state level because we don't implement all the conservation, but we implement a chunk of the working lands conservation, and we can show that that's quantifiable. And so that's the part that we're going to next. So California working lands, they deliver voluntary, real atmospheric benefits while producing food and fiber. So I'm going to jump to the next slide, keep things going, and we'll look at the California data. So through my research with kind of the basic, you know, readily available land areas in California, approximately 100 million acres of land area. California agriculture, 43 million acres, and NRCS impacts about 10 million acres between the time frame 2004 to 2018. So NRCS is having a pretty good touch, if you might, on that's 1/4 of the agricultural working lands that we have something involved. This is a cumulative number, and this is an annual number based on surveys. So, you know, over time, NRCS has an impact on some of the land. Some folks want to work with NRCS, some people don't. Some people want to work with the state Healthy Soils Program and others. So it's, you know, we want to keep all options open for producers. And then we can take that nearly 10 million acres of land and look at the carbon sequestration that goes with it. And so we can see that there's just short of 1 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent associated with that. So that's a pretty big free, well, it's not free, it's you know, paid for by everybody, our tax dollars, but it comes to California in federal support, and it's a bunch of benefits. 1 million metric tons is a lot of carbon dioxide equivalent. So then I can take my numbers, and now remember those. I want to jog your memory and make sure you're with me here. remember my healthy soils bucket, I can disperse that into healthy soils programs. So you can see like conservation crop rotation, for example, cover crops, contour farms not doing much, reduced till. These are all our soil health bucket practices. So you can see they're up here. We're putting in about 2 million acres of those, and that's Carlos and his team and his conservation partners delivering conservation on the ground. And within that, we're delivering 367 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, which is a pretty good size of carbon that we're moving out of the atmosphere into healthy soils here. And so that's like offsetting nearly 40,000 Californians' carbon footprint in a given year, or 79,000 passenger vehicles for a given year. Now, I want to be just truth in numbers is always important. This is aggregate, and these are on an annual basis, because here's actually the average Californian's carbon footprint is going down quite substantially. We're at 9.256 tons per person per year. I think the national average is around 16. So Californians have a lighter carbon footprint than the rest of the country on a per capita basis. So what I've just shown you is kind of a demonstration of how working lands conservation can get on the ground and have atmospheric benefits, how it can be delivered in healthy soils programs, in livestock programs, grazing land programs, and then how we can do the quantification associated with this. So remember, this is the total. We got about 10 million acres total that NRCS is touching during this time frame, with, of course, with the partnership. That's the critical part. Is we go out and we work with people. Carlos and his team work with people. It's a partnership, and then CDFA has their Healthy Soils program, which does the exact same thing. It works as a partnership. So, and then we've got our Healthy Soils work, which is delivering, and all of this voluntary conservation is delivering real, quantifiable, absolute carbon benefits to the atmosphere. And you can see, here's my, I'm going to take you through one more challenging piece of the presentation, and we'll see if I don't run out of time here. This is direct benefits, and you'll hear me talk about this with and without conservation legacy effect. And what this is this is our annual implementation of practices. You can see it's really easy to see in the green, like a livestock partnership. That's an anaerobic digester implementation that we had. So this was work NRCS in 2015 worked with a producer to implement an anaerobic digester. There was a new one, another one in 2016, and then 2 more in 2017. These are not cumulative, but these are individual. So that's our benefits on an annual basis that we're delivering through voluntary conservation, just through the NRCS programs. And then there's something called the conservation legacy effect, which is, we all understand compounding interest. Well, there's compounding carbon interest in the ecosystem as well. We know that it can be a positive feedback loop if we help it along and help feed that positive feedback loop. So carbon builds upon carbon, and then you get the shape of a curve that looks like this. And as a scientist, you can see, so that one anaerobic digester gives way to 2 because you had one here, and then it gives way to 4, and so on and so forth. So I represent numbers. I'm a scientist, and I just represent the numbers in 2 different ways. I don't pick which one's better, but I do understand compounding interest, whether it be carbon or whether it be in my bank account, and that is something that we as a community can benefit from. And you can see the power of healthy soils deliver more carbon year on year, and then more available water holding capacity, more drought resilience, all the things that we all know as a community much better. But what I've tried to do is try to put numbers with those, because our agency sits on a lot of data, but it's a lot of individual specific data. So you'll notice that nothing I've shown you today is county level, because we want to protect everybody's confidentiality and individuality of their operations. And so then I kind of present my results in two different ways. That compounding interest, which is with what I call that conservation legacy effect. So you see the growth here. And then the direct benefits, which is year-on-year benefits. And I show both benefits there, and kind of truth in disclosure. So the what I started off with, my kind of thing that I wanted to impose upon you or share with you, is that California Working Lands, they deliver voluntary, real, and quantifiable atmospheric benefits while producing food and fiber for the world. Right? That's really just the message that I want to get home to you all, is you guys understand the carbon cycles and the nitrogen cycles much better than I do. But we're actually delivering something that has a lot of value, and it's being recognized that there is more and more value. The 2018 Farm Bill recognized that very generously. And I think even today, there was an executive order that came out talking about this stuff. So, it's our chance to shine as a community. I think I would advocate for all of us to do good quantification that's transparent. I believe in the best science, but I also think that there's an economic benefit and an economic upside for us all in this, whether it's longevity and the health of soils, or whether there's a market in the future that can reward us for doing healthy soils, building carbon and reducing that atmospheric carbon stocks. So in closing, here's the takeaway results that I wanted to share with y'all. Voluntary conservation practices deliver atmospheric benefits in California. Absolutely. They're direct benefits. Some carbon farm planning and other things like that we see originate out of California. There are co-benefits. We pick up available water holding capacity. We pick up ambient air quality improvements. There are ancillary benefits. There's cleaner water, healthier environment, and we can quantify these benefits. And I really hope that you guys found this interesting. Our team at the U.S. government works across federal, state, and with local partners to deliver conservation. And now we're trying to quantify the amount of conservation we're delivering both on the ground and to the atmosphere. And with that, Matt, I'm going to hand it back over to you. I don't know whether I ran completely out of time or whether I have a minute left.
No, actually, you're doing really good. You got about 8 minutes for questions. We have some questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to take a look at those. I can point those out right now. One question is, how long lasting are these carbon benefits?
That's a great question, and it's a topic that I try to go through with that conservation legacy effect. And every individual practice has a different sense of what my corporate friends all tell me it's tackiness or stickiness, like how long will it stick? And if it's a windbreak and NRCS partners with a producer to implement a windbreak, which is probably the easiest to talk about, the ability of that to build carbon year on year and to accumulate carbon stocks over time is very high. I still give it a little bit of a discount factor. I give it a 75%. I'd say 75% of our windbreak acres carry forward. Now, unfortunately, those cover crops that I showed you, they're much lower to have that stickiness or to stay implemented with a producer if there's not a financial incentive. And truthfully, I can't find literature that supports anything more than 10%. So with a cover crop, if there's not a payment from an external source, it's much less likely that a producer is going to carry that practice forward. Therefore, I can take account for that carbon benefit in the cover crop in that year, but I can't carry much of that forward with my conservation legacy effect into the future. So those are two kind of pillars on different ends of the spectrum. And I work with the Economic Research Service to come up with a CLE or conservation legacy effect for each individual practice. And then I apply it And of course, that doesn't apply to direct year-on-year benefits.
Okay. We have another question. If there is a national direct carbon sequestration payment, do you think NRCS would be the platform for agriculture funding?
So I can tell you that that people have asked that question of NRCS leadership, and that NRCS leadership is examining what skills we have and what skills we don't. The carbon accounting work I think that I've done is it's pretty transparent and very usable. And then we've got a set of quantification tools called the COMET tools that allow a producer to do this independently. And then in California, we've got the Healthy Soils Program, as I mentioned, which is CDFA and the Air Resources Board bringing state level, state government money from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund to distribute to farmers and ranchers who can implement these practices. So I really can't, I'm more of a here, what's going on today and what has been done in history. In the future, whether it's a carbon bank, whether it's a payment for ecosystem services or pay for performance type program, I really don't, I don't know. We'll have to kind of wait and see how leadership wants to take it.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And we have another question from one of our attendees that says, where can we go to find a list of the direct, ancillary, and co-benefits of carbon farming? We are currently in the Healthy Soils program with compost on rangeland, and we will be co-presenting in a couple of weeks. And I want to have all my ducks in a row. Great question. And I would, I'd open this up to everybody just to take a look. As Jeremy spoke, Jeremy's a colleague of mine from my office and we share, thanks to NRCS's investments, we share technology leadership efforts. And I lead a project called the COMET tools. And as a Healthy Soils, when you sign up for a Healthy Soils program, you will go into the COMET planner tool for the Healthy Soils program within California and specify the compost, the C to N ratio of the compost, how you're going to apply it, and then approximate the benefits associated over time. And those are benefits that the compost delivers to the ecosystem. That's not the carbon embodied in the compost. So we're not just putting carbon on, it's actually compost infusing change in the system. And so within that COMET planner, it's COMET-planner, and then you'll find the Healthy Soils program, which is specific to California. We work really closely with CDFA, the California Department of Food and Ag, to deliver that tool. And it's readily available for anybody, about a 5-click tool, and you'll have your calculations for your individual county, which is based on a meta modeling approach. I don't want to go too far into that today.